I do have one last opinion for you. And this one's going to come straight out of one of these believers' mouths himself. So I'm going to show you his clip where I think he very rapid fires a lot of the things that most men who believe this way don't want to say out loud. And that is probably for fear that they will get roasted, laughed at, called exactly what they are. But he says it, and he says it with confidence. And he very confidently asserts that he's correct. So, I mean, gotta give that to him. That is quite literally all I can give to him. but I can give that to him. He is confident, and that moves people. That makes people believe in you. So, nice job. I will play the video clip. We will watch it, and then I will address what he's said here. All right, here we go.
When a man cheats, he conquers a woman. But when a woman cheats, she's being conquered by a man.
See, this is common sense, and this is the fundamental difference between why male infidelity and female infidelity are different. The act of sex for a woman literally calls for her to surrender her body in a form of submission to allow a man to penetrate her and inseminate her with the prerogative of getting pregnant. The fact that we like to rationalize sex as a form of pleasure does not change the fundamental axiom in which this principle is rooted. When women cheat, they typically run the risk of becoming pregnant, the highest possibility at that, considering the fact that women tend to cheat around ovulation and when they're fertile, which is subconsciously a woman saying that she would rather have another man's baby than her mate's baby, which is why men even trip about female infidelity to the degree in which they do, because men don't want to unknowingly father another man's seed. That would be the ultimate waste of time, energy, effort, and resources on the man's behalf. Not to mention that women are often emotionally tied to or in love with the men that they tend to cheat with, which means she'll end up leaving the relationship anyway. And then you have the act of sex itself, her allowing herself to be dominated by another man, meaning she's his now.
Are we okay? Oh, okay. I will say, I think he told the ultimate truth at the end. I really appreciate him for that. He made that really easy to understand the underlying issue, the underlying motivation there. That's what's at play. He revealed exactly what this is rooted in most of the time. Okay, let's start at the beginning. A few things to note. And this man can be very impactful. This man stands to do some damage. Okay, so he's nothing to just ignore. This is definitely harmful. He is, for one, very articulate. He speaks very clearly. Like I said, he speaks with conviction. He doesn't get too up in arms about anything he's saying. He just very directly and confidently states it. And he states things that are very clearly opinions or based in theories and ideologies and conditioning and cultural ideas, things like that from a traditional time. He speaks as though those are factual, accepted ideas across the board, instead of saying these are
my beliefs and my opinions and the way I think life should be lived and viewed.
That is a strong tactic if you want people to listen to you and buy into what you're saying. So he's doing all the right things as far as communication and being a good speaker. He commands attention on him. Okay, so all that, awesome job. Okay, he's saying things that are pretty harmful to women, and he's aware of that. So that is why he uses the clip of a woman in the beginning to make a very impactful statement to start his clip, because he knows exactly what that's going to do. I mean, you can get a million men to say this, but if you want to win over the most people possible, get the members of that group to turn on and trash their own group. That's really going to have an impact. Okay, so it's unfortunate that there's women that are saying things like that to be able to choose from, but he found one, and I wasn't able, unfortunately, to find the actual clip of the woman saying this, so I don't know if this was on his podcast or what. Like, I tried to look for it, but I couldn't find it. I'll be honest, I didn't spend a lot of time looking because it largely doesn't matter. Because let's think about what she said, all right? She comes out bold. She says, when a man cheats, he's conquering a woman. When a woman cheats, she's allowing herself to be conquered by a man. It's a bold statement and very to the point, okay? Let's look at the definition of conquer, okay? Conquer, let's see. To conquer, overcome, and take control of, place, or people by use of military force. Okay, often used in war terms. We also have, let's see, to gain or acquire by force of arms, weapons. Yeah, subjugate, conquer territory, vanquish, conquered by the enemy. To take control or possession of foreign land or a group of people by force, or to defeat someone in a game or a competition. Amazing.
Wow.
Okay, so we have a woman talking about when men cheat. I would have to assume that she is making this statement because this is the role that men play in physical intimacy, and then this is the role that women play in physical intimacy, so that's why when they cheat, that's the same role, okay? So she's saying that when men and women engage in physical intimacy, a man is conquering a woman. I didn't know that we were on a battlefield. I didn't know that we were at war. I didn't know that this was a game or a competition, but I guess I did know it was to some people, and I guess we figured out what this is about. Okay, he starts the video that way. All right, so I think we can imagine how he views women, something to conquer, and what he views physical intimacy as an act of attempting to do. Okay, great. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that if you view physical intimacy that way, and if you view women that way, it makes a lot of sense why you would equate women cheating to being a lot worse, I guess, than when a man does. Because she's surrendering herself over to a different conqueror. I mean, hello. That is pretty bad. But here's where these men make the mistake, is that I would like to believe that not a majority of people view it that way, and I certainly know that not everyone views it that way. It's certainly not meant to be that way unless you dehumanize women and unless you're a misogynist, okay? And then to be a woman when you are sleeping with a man willingly, or if you have multiple, like you're single and you're just dating around as a woman, that you're throwing yourself out to each enemy captain and like letting them conquer you, I guess. And I guess if you view it that way, that's pretty bleak. Yeah, that doesn't fare well. Makes sense. But see, most women, they don't feel that way. They aren't something to be conquered. Factually, they are not. So whether you view it this way or not doesn't make it accurate. That might be how you view it when you do the deed, but doesn't make it true. But it does really give you insight into where this viewpoint comes from. All right, so the very next thing he says, the first time he speaks in the video, he says,
see, this is common sense.
I like to cite a little phrase that is ringing truer and truer as I look around in the current state of things, and that is that common sense is just not common. It doesn't seem to be common a lot, often, sometimes around here. What people call common sense oftentimes is just a reflection of social conditioning, and oftentimes just a way for them to make it sound like you're dumb if you don't agree with their framing of something that serves them, their selfish needs and desires, and they want to force upon a weak mind that
You're really stupid if you don't agree with me about this. I mean, it's just common sense.
this is manipulative language. When someone says
It's just common sense.
and they're trying to sell you an idea that pins one group superior and to conquer another group of people, yeah, they're manipulating you. You don't have to believe me. That's just the common definition of manipulation. The idea of men as conquerors and women as the conquered, that's what's known as a social narrative. Okay, that's not biological fact. That's, again, just somebody's narrative, just somebody's opinion, just somebody's theory and way that they want to live. And, you know, more power to you. If you want to live out your, like, Game of Thrones fantasy in your bedroom, hey, if that makes you feel like the king that you want to be, do it with consenting adults. More power to you. But it's never going to be reality. It's never going to be actual logic. It's never going to be real. And it's quite harmful when you try to apply it to everyday life and then assert it online like it's facts and like people are dumb if they don't agree with you, and use it as a way to dehumanize women on a broad scale, on a platform for thousands of people. What you need is a therapist, a good one, lots of it. Then he says,
And this is the fundamental difference between why male infidelity and female infidelity are different.
okay, this is just not objectively true. It's based on socially constructed gender norms, not any type of psychological or biological fact. Very observantly, the emotional impact of infidelity ranges and may vary per individual, per couple, per situation. It is not based on what gender does the cheating, has no basis in that. And the idea that male infidelity is about conquest and female infidelity is about submission is a very outdated idea and theory and viewpoint that is just very blatantly rooted in misogyny. This is such a straightforward example of it. So that's what that is. But let's keep going. He then says,
The act of sex for a woman literally calls for her to surrender her body in a form of submission to allow a man to penetrate her and inseminate her with the prerogative of getting pregnant. The fact that we like to rationalize sex as a form of pleasure does not change the fundamental axiom in which this principle is rooted.
now, when people start using terms like the fundamental axiom, I tend to question if they authentically wrote what they are saying, because I don't think they did. I don't think that's language that people often use. So, interesting choice of words. But I don't know. So this claim is, again, just built on a patriarchal framework, using sexual reproduction as the only lens for the way you should interpret sex and what it means and what the roles are. He acknowledges that we don't engage in physical intimacy for the sole purpose of reproduction. He acknowledges that we have turned it into something that is done and sought after for pleasure. And I would say especially in the terms of infidelity. I mean, I don't think most people are engaging in infidelity through a reproductive lens. And I mean, I don't know. People are cray. So that was an interesting way to say that. But clearly that lens just ignores the emotional aspect, the relational aspect of physical intimacy, the recreational, which he acknowledges, and then says,
It doesn't change the fundamental axiom.
sir, please put your thesaurus away. Just chill out. Also just makes it sound like almost like it doesn't have a consent element to it. If you're conquering something, that's uncomfortable. I didn't like it. It really frames female sexuality as something very passive and submissive. It is a fact that reproduction is a biological function of physical intimacy. But you forgot again that we're humans. They always forget that we're humans, not animals, that are just engaging that way to reproduce, okay? He acknowledged that, but then he still said,
But it's still tied to its fundamental reason.
like, why? That doesn't make any sense. If someone's engaging in the act not for those reasons, then you can't apply all the extra stuff that you apply to it being a function of reproduction. If they're not doing it for that, then those things don't apply. And there was a study done in 2007, and this study identified over 200 different reasons that people engage in physical intimacy. And guess what was not even anywhere near number one? To reproduce. Okay, the top two answers were connection and pleasure. Okay, so more often than not, people are not engaging in physical intimacy to reproduce, and I would say especially not during infidelity. His argument largely falls apart right there. I mean, I think it fell apart before he started talking, but definitely does right there. So yeah, there's that. Framing female sexuality as submission is solely a cultural interpretation. It does not make it biologically factual. It is not a fact. It's just an interpretation. Many mutual, consensual, very empowering, equal party physical intimacy exchanges include penetration. So no. And again, it's this man's right to view it this way. That is fine if that's the way he wants to live his life. That's the way he wants to view it. But where you lose logic, and where you make an absolutely horrible mistake that gets you so off base, is when then you decide to apply that to everybody, and you decide to interpret everyone else's actions and motivations based on your interpretation and viewpoint of things and how you believe it should be, how you believe it is, how you view it. And then you think,
well, if that other person did this, this is why.
Sir, that came right out of your own head and your own thoughts and your own opinions, okay? It doesn't apply to everybody, but that's what these people like to do. They like to say,
Well, no, that's the objective truth because it came out of my top of the line brain, my superior brain that just, I know the truth of life and I have the correct answer. So this is why every time a woman does this, it means this.
bro, does that sound even logical to you? Like, it does. The people, at times, I'm baffled because the number of people that jump in the comments and are like,
yes, I agree, this is accurate. Finally, someone telling the truth.
I'm like, how many of these people are around? I'm scared. Like, what? This is concerning. Like, that's concerning because it's very, I don't know, it just seems so clear. No one's viewpoint applies broadly like that. Like, that's just such, like, you can't be that intelligent. Like, he comes across as intelligent unless you listen to what he is saying. That's the problem. How intelligent can you be? And it's like, I almost have to think that because he sounds so intelligent, he must know he's manipulating. He must know that what he's saying is BS and that it is only forcibly manipulating people to believe his way that serves him. I think it's manipulation for sure. That's my opinion. Once again, I'm not saying it absolutely is. I'm saying that's my opinion. That's what I think it is. That's what it looks like to me. Also, when he uses the language, when he says clearly that the male prerogative is to penetrate and inseminate to get the woman pregnant, I would think that would be where he lost a lot of people, because I don't think very often when men largely are engaging in physical intimacy that their prerogative is anywhere near to inseminate. They're definitely not hoping that happens. I mean, usually that's not their prerogative. Way less times than it is. So that was weird. I don't think so. That's especially not during infidelity. Like, what is he even talking about? That was weird. What's really happening here? I mean, when you're using language like this, it's just a pattern of people that use language like this. This is a worldview that just wants to morally judge female sexuality. It's just feeding right into the narrative of that. It's trying to ingrain more deeply into men and women that women's sexuality should be equated with loss and surrendering and shame. It's not a fundamental axiom. No, it's just one man's very narrow-minded philosophy. Unfortunately, A lot of people agree with him more than should, and it's just being cloaked biologically to make it sound like it's objective fact, and it's not. It's very false and very misleading. He's being intentionally misleading. It doesn't just strip women of nuance and complexity and human factors and traits. It also strips men of that. It really reduces them down to like just one thing and something very robotic. So that's just a bit sad. But he really goes off the deep end with his next statement. This part, I could barely hold it together. He says,
when women cheat, they typically run the risk of becoming pregnant.
I think that anytime anyone engages in physical intimacy, they run the risk of causing a pregnancy. That's the more accurate statement, okay? To put pregnancy on women cheating is very weird. He says,
The highest possibility at that, considering the fact that women tend to cheat around ovulation and when they're fertile.
Women get pregnant during ovulation. That's how that works. So, okay. Then he says, when they are most likely to cheat. Okay, sir, this is something that people do. Like, people do this a lot, and it's very annoying, especially in a modern time of anybody and everybody can just have a platform and just like say things. I've learned this is one of my like strongest pet peeves. It really freaking irritates me, and I'm so aware of it now. When people make claims, which are their opinions, and they state them in a way that it sounds like they are asserting them as factual information that they have checked. Like they are absolutes, which I said this man did this entire video, okay? Just back to back to back to back, he did this, and that's when I was cringing the entire time, because like almost nothing that he said was based in facts and data to back it up, okay? Have there been studies about this? There have been some.
Let me just clarify here. Some studies have suggested that women may experience slightly increased attraction to genetically quote-unquote fit men, often described as symmetrical or dominant during ovulation, especially if they're in unsatisfying relationships. But the effect size are small and inconsistent, and follow-up studies have failed to reliably replicate the claim. And meta-analysis shows mixed or no strong support for the idea that ovulation significantly changes behavior in modern human females.
Have any of them been anywhere near something that could be called a shred of conclusive? Zero. No. In fact, they've been largely inconclusive and not able to be replicated successfully, therefore coming to the conclusion that it's likely not the case. That's what the data shows. This is just a perfect example of confirmation bias, because people will look up something, they will find one study done about it where someone had a hypothesis that they then saw a correlation to a conclusion, and then they won't look any further. But if you understand scientific research and how to actually do that and actually verify data, correlation is not causation. Just because something's correlated with something doesn't mean it's the cause of it and that it actually goes together. Anything can coincidentally happen and coincide in one study. Things that are completely not related. In that particular moment, in that study with those people with that issue, that's what happened. You need to do it again with different people and get the same results. And if you do that enough times, then you can very confidently say that the data is showing a strong correlation. That was absolutely not the case with what he is stating. It's actually the opposite of that. Okay, so he is very blatantly stating something that is not true and has been more proven to be probably not related in any way than it has been proven to be related. So he's very irresponsibly reporting something, saying it like it's real. And that's just so cringy to me. You just lose all credibility when you do that with me. But the thing is, the reason it's so infuriating is because so many people, they don't care to check into it. They'll just believe it because he said it. It's so annoying, and that's why it's harmful. People can just spout off anything, and if it sounds like what you want to believe, people will join in and be like, yeah, I heard that there. Yeah, because all those people are just spouting it off and not being responsible. So you gotta fact check. You gotta look at research, and that's something that I always do, okay? And if I ever report something wrong, I always come back and say that I did. If I've ever done that, I definitely do that too, because I'm not perfect. I at least try my best to be responsible with what I report. Have some integrity. This person clearly does not. But he doesn't stop there, okay? Because then he takes the very irresponsible viewpoint he just stated that's been pretty much shown to not have any basis in fact, and he stated it as a fact, and then he took that and then he interpreted what that means. And he said,
which is subconsciously a woman saying that
stop right there. Stop it. Stop, sir. He didn't stop. He said
she would rather have another man's baby than her mate's baby.
Jail. Jail. That's so... No. Emotion behind that one. That was based in pure emotion. That whole thought process. All of that. He's real worried about that. He thinks that's a real threat, that's happening all the time. And he's very worried about it. Yikes. To be so concerned about something that happens so infrequently on the grand scale. It does happen. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. It does happen. Obviously, we know that. But it's the bias. It's that one that's so hard to, I forget how to say it every time. Heuristic something. Heuristic bias. It's the one where you think, I think maybe I'm getting them confused. I'll look it up. But it's the one where what you see, basically what you're finding with your confirmation bias already, you believe is common, when it's actually statistically far less common than the opposite. It's actually really uncommon in the grand scheme of things. You see people win the lottery and then you're like, people just win the lottery all the time. Or you see shark attacks reported and you think that there's a real threat in the ocean. You're afraid to go in the ocean because you think you're going to get attacked by a shark every time you go in the ocean. So highly unlikely. But here's the thing. I agree. It's a valid concern for men to be worried about paternity, to be worried about being lied to, about a child being yours and not knowing that your partner has been unfaithful. Because that is something that you can attribute to the way things are biologically. Women carry the baby, so anytime a woman is carrying a baby, she knows it's her baby. Men don't have that luxury, and I can understand where that would cause a little bit of fear in a world where people do cheat. Okay, that's valid. That is so valid. But just like anything else, you're taking it too far. You're taking it too far. You can't let yourself become the villain because of your fears. Okay, that's this right here. This is this man's villain story right here. Okay, he became so afraid of that happening, which was a valid fear. I mean, it's valid for you to advocate for yourself, vet partners, make sure that you're just watching out for red flags and things like that, like a normal human being, like everyone has to do. And that's a valid concern. If you see signs that maybe your partner is not telling you the truth about things, but if you're constantly on edge and worried about that, then you're going to find it. You're going to create it. You're going to inspire it. Self-fulfilling prophecy. And also it turns you into somebody who acts like this and believes like this. You just can't be that worried about things like that and focus on them. It's just like anybody else. You let fear rule your life, chances are you're going to turn into somebody who's largely negative and start creating all these weird ways of coping, like putting all women into one box and dehumanizing them. That's what that turns into. And I don't think that people who do that turn out very happy in the end. You know, that's not what seems to be the outcome most of the time. Not a good way to go. Also because it's just not based in truth. You're wrong. It's not common that happens. That's not typically why people are cheating. That's not what is going on. Okay? Can that happen? Yeah, but it's not commonly the case. All right, so he says,
which is why men even trip about female infidelity to the degree in which they do, because men don't want to unknowingly father another man's seed.
Okay. Is that what it's all about? I truly wouldn't have guessed that. I mean, I kind of believe him. I think that might be what it's about for some of these men. And yeah, again, that's just sad. Because it's just so, the likelihood of that. I'm sure that they have a lot of better things that they should be worrying about. But that's just really occupying too much space for how much of an actual problem it is. So the statistic that studies have shown is somewhere between 1% to 2% per generation of men find out that they were unknowingly raising a child that was not actually theirs, okay? So that's like 1 to 2 per every 100 man per generation will come to this knowledge, okay? Is that significant? Yeah. Like to the 1 or 2 in every 100, if you happen to be that man, that's terrible. That's obviously that's obviously very heartbreaking. Not minimizing that at all. Not worth basing how you treat people as less than human in every relationship that you're in then because of that. Not fair to degrade someone's humanity and act like an act of something like infidelity is so much worse based on something that is a 1 or 2% of men that it happens to. Not worth it. There's other ways, you know, than taking on this very negative and harmful way of life and way of treating women and way of viewing them. That, like, you could just get a paternity test if you're so worried about it. Those exist, you know? That's just so odd. The fact that women can become pregnant doesn't all of a sudden make women, when they cheat, so much worse of an act. Okay, because guess what? You, sir, can get women pregnant.
Hello, friend.
So what's the big freaking difference, okay? Is it totally different because you impregnate your side chick outside of your relationship? Is that different than when your wife or girlfriend cheats on you and gets pregnant? I think they're both pretty effed up and royally ruined your situation, either one of you. So, I mean, I don't really understand. That's a threat. And guess what? Here's the thing. If you're cheating a lot as a man, you could actually get so many women pregnant. You could get like a lot of women pregnant all at the same time. Your partner can only get pregnant. Like, she can just, that's it. She can just get pregnant one time. You could literally create several babies. Like you could create like a different baby every day, potentially. So I think you might want to like sit down on that one. Like just, I don't think you're making a point. I don't think that's a point you want to make. It just doesn't make any sense. And I don't think you're going to win that one. Unless, like with the audience that, again, is weak-minded and falling for the manipulation. It doesn't make logical sense. Furthermore, to say this is why something, 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 as if you could possibly know why every single man is upset about female infidelity. I think that pretty much everyone is upset about anyone's infidelity. I think that that's easy to understand, that anyone would be upset about that. So just stating the obvious, but then you're saying that you know why. Who came down from heaven above, or whatever you believe in, and bestowed upon you the knowledge that is within every single person's feelings, emotions, thoughts, so that you thought that you could speak about why every man across the board is upset about specifically female infidelity? You can't. There's no way you can know that. Okay? I think it's what you think is a very good point, because it only applies to women. The fact that they can get pregnant. You're completely negating the part about how you can get many women pregnant. Doesn't make any sense. Okay? Try again. Why don't you start telling the truth? He then says,
not to mention that women are often emotionally tied to or in love with the men that they tend to cheat with, which means she'll end up leaving the relationship anyway.
Okay, women are often emotionally tied to or in love with the men they cheat with. I'm going to give him credit here. I don't know if it's often. It is more often than found with men. That is true. Okay, I will say that. But it's still way too generalized. And the thing is that sometimes men are in love with the women that they cheat with. Sometimes men are emotionally tied to the women that they cheat with. Sometimes women are not emotionally tied to the men that they cheat with. It's just, is there more often women who are going to be emotionally tied to the men that they cheat with? Yes. And that is because they found that women reported cheating for the reason of a lack of emotional fulfillment in their relationship more often than men. So that's one of the number one reasons that women report as why they cheated, is because of a lack of emotional fulfillment. It would be a correct assumption to say that they would likely be seeking that. Okay, men tend to cheat because of novelty and opportunity. The opportunity was there, they took it. Or they get bored when something is too old. They want something that's new and exciting. Those are their most reported reasons, okay? So they're not going to be as much seeking the emotional connection. So they're just not facilitating it. It's not that women are just emotionally tied to the cheating partner. It's because a lot of times that's what they went looking for. It doesn't always mean that they find it. And it doesn't mean that every woman is in love with the person that she cheats with. Oftentimes that's not the case. I know that it is more common for a woman to forgive the man for cheating than it is for the man to forgive the woman for cheating. And it's actually often spoke out against, and that men should not forgive the woman for cheating, okay? Again, it's that way because of social conditioning. It's the naturalistic fallacy. Just because that happens that way doesn't mean that that's a good thing, or that it should be that way, or that it's right, and it doesn't defend factual evidence that it's better when men cheat and not good when women cheat. That's so dumb. Staying post-infidelity is actually just common. It's a common thing because it's hard for people to leave a relationship. It's harder. You know, they've blown up their relationship. They've caused this horrible trauma to the person they're in a relationship with because it's so hard to dismantle that relationship now, but it's had a bomb go off in the middle of it. So you've just caused so much trauma to everyone involved. Whoever does it. Doesn't matter if it's a man or the woman that does it. It's devastating. And I've been cheated on, so I can tell you, when men cheat, it is devastating. It's devastating. Sometimes people get cheated on when they have a family. They have the home that they have together. They have finances intermingled, okay? It's not as easy as just walk away, all right? So there's a lot to figure out. So people often do stay post-infidelity. It's just a common thing across the board, regardless of who cheated. So for him to say she's probably going to leave anyway, that's ridiculous. That's not what statistics show on either side. It typically banks on the emotional investment that they had in the original relationship, the status or meaning of the affair, how much they felt for the other person, how much they want to keep that going, or how easily they can give it up. And I've seen it both ways. And then logistical constraints, children, home, finances, all of that. And also how they found out about the affair, the extent of it, the nature of it, and how it was addressed, how they decided to work on it. Was there accountability? Were they both willing to work on it? That's what dictates if they can end up staying post-infidelity. Not what he's saying. It's just so like generalized and basic. Grow up. Why do you sound like a child with the most basic understanding of humans? It's so ridiculous. And most affairs are not started with the intention to replace original relationships. Matter of fact, they're typically a coping mechanism and a lapse in quality judgment. They're not typically an exit plan for either person. But the very last statement that he makes really, I think, just reveals the whole thing. It just reveals what this is all about in actuality. He really told the truth as far as revealing the truth for what he actually believes. what this is actually about. I think that this is solid. And he says,
and then you have the act of sex itself, her allowing herself to be dominated by another man, meaning she's his now.
okay, well, there you go. What is he really saying here? Let's really unpack it, okay? First, we already talked about it. Consent does not equal submission, okay? A woman making a free choice to have sex does not mean she's submitting to someone. It doesn't mean she's being conquered. It doesn't mean that she belongs to anyone. She's a human being. We're not cattle. We're not property, okay? We are people, and sex does not determine that we are somehow that person's now. You don't belong to someone because you were physically intimate with them. As much as he wants this to be true, it's not. Sorry. Not all physical intimacy is dominant, submissive. If that's the way you want to engage in it, again, more power to you. You can have that fantasy, you can have those role plays, you can do all of that. You can see it that way. Not everyone is doing that. That's not everybody's cup of tea. That's not everybody's thing. The last line, he just fully displays his misogyny. He puts it right on Front Street, okay? He believes that male physical intimacy is a dominating, conquering act where he is taking possession of a woman. Okay, cool. Again, you want to live out your fantasy, enjoy, but it's not everybody. That doesn't explain why women cheating is worse than male cheating. That's why this man thinks it is, and anybody who believes his ridiculous rhetoric. It's false, first of all, just period. It's deeply toxic. It's dehumanizing to women, very much so. And it's stupid.
Oh, wow,
okay?
man.
Because if you're going to say that she's his now, what about all the women that you're claiming it's okay for you to cheat with? Those all these women belong to you? I'm sorry, but did the person that you're with sign up to be in a polyamorous relationship, an open relationship on one end? It's okay for you to have all these women that belong to you, but she needs to be faithful because it's wrong for her to do that? That's stupid. That's dumb. It's just a biological framing to justify behavior, to justify their moral bankruptcy, his lack of integrity, and the fact that he doesn't want to have to control his entitlement.
This whole idea of ownership that comes along with physical intimacy is just rooted in patriarchal logic, and it's completely false. Now, if you like the idea of belonging to someone,
I belong to you, you belong to me, we're soulmates.
like whatever, do it. Great. But I doubt that's what he means here. He's talking about possession. He's talking about control. And this type of possession was largely used to justify violence against women, keeping them inferior. So it's dangerous. It's a dangerous way to talk and a dangerous way to think. All right, well, we got through that. Jeez Louise. All right, so just to summarize, the real dangers of videos like this is that, like I said before, this video uses rapid fire falsehoods, a confident delivery, and then pseudo-intellectual framing to manipulate viewers into just accepting harmful ideas as truth. And the creator knows that there will be a certain type of person that will find these truths very appealing, those that benefit from it, aka men that are angry about something, hurt about something, having trouble with women maybe, and need someone to blame, or want justification to act out their entitlement. People love nothing more than to find out that they have a reason to say why their crappy behavior is actually just totally fine and they're totally warranted and it's how it should be, especially if they can justify it with science and biology and nature. They love those words. And it makes sense because, yeah, that's how we like to justify things in real life that actually can be justified with proof. So it really just preys on insecurities, mostly surrounding gender resentment that is currently the climate of the times a lot of it. It distorts science and it distorts psychology to justify double standards. Dehumanizes women, it's a big one, while excusing male behavior, because we need a lot more of that, and then just delivers misinformation with conviction, just to like bypass critical thinking. People don't want to have to critical think, so like if they're told something sounds pretty good, boosts them up, gives them a reason to act out their selfish, bad behavior, and continue staying that way, and they don't have to change, and now they have justification. They're not going to critically think. That would seem to be working against them. So it's dangerous, very inviting to that crowd, and then that crowd grows. The bottom line is, this isn't education. This isn't proof of anyone's side of an argument. It's basically just indoctrination. It's an emotional weapon disguised as logic. And the faster it spreads, the more damage it does to real relationships, self-worth. It damages equality. And it's dangerous towards women. That's who it's aimed at to harm. But it also is damaging to men. Men who fall into this trap and start behaving this way and think this way, they're operating out of a place of insecurity and fear. And like I said, anything where you are operating from a place of fear or insecurity is bound to end with you lonely, disappointed, and not getting the thing that you wanted. It's not going to achieve your goal. It doesn't end well. And I can think of a very good example in my life
of how that proved to be true. I was a people pleaser most of my life, and people pleasing on the outside, you might know, looks very much like, and even to the people pleaser, they tell themselves this, I thought this my whole life. It's a kind gesture. You're doing things for people. You're loving people. You're giving of yourself. You're so giving, loving, altruistic, wonderful. I did it from a place of insecurity. I was insecure. I needed external validation because I didn't have my own self-worth, and I was doing it to gain love. And so what did it end me up with? Nothing. It didn't get me love. I was more lonely. It isolated me. I felt less connection with people. And it got me nowhere. It got me hurt even more. It pleased no one, especially not me. And that is because it operated from a place of insecurity and fear. You can never operate from that space. This person who's spouting off all of these things about how women are and how men are, it is just further dividing the two genders instead of bringing them together. And it's disguising itself as like, this is how a harmonious relationship is supposed to work. It's not going to help in the end. I hope that this video was helpful today and you understand how to fight back against some of these arguments. And make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I love you. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time. Bye.
I'ma show you when a real bitch don't wanna be nice no more. A rude bitch, I'ma be a rude bitch to you, and I won't say I'm sorry when I do that shit to you. Ooh, rude as hell, acting hella brand new, and ooh, you gon' hate to see it too. Where is my